Hi and good evening. Thank you for watching. I'm Shakil 5858. I am Buddham. Now the latest headlines from world channels and news agencies.
Purported leaked.
Tonight, breaking news, 3 Israeli women freed by Hamas as a ceasefire deal goes into effect. The popular social media app TikTok says it's in the process of restoring service to more than 100 million American users, and 70 million people from North Carolina to Maine brace for a massive winter storm hitting the east right now and bringing some travel to a standstill. First, freedom for 3 former hostages as the ceasefire in Gaza holds. The tumultuous scenes as they are taken by the Red Cross to Israeli forces now back in Israel, capped with joyful reunions with their families after 471 days in captivity, all kidnapped by Hamas on October 7th. They are the first of what's expected to be 33 hostages released by Hamas. The agreement allows for desperately needed humanitarian aid to begin flowing into Gaza. We have team coverage. Ian Pannell reports from Tel Aviv. Tom Sufi Burridge is in the West Bank. TikTok makes a comeback. The popular social media platform says it's in the process of restoring service to more than 100 million American users after a show of support from President-elect Trump. How it's all playing out. With just hours to go before returning to the White House, Trump holds a rally in Washington, D.C. Thousands line up for his triumphant return to office. As the new administration prepares to hit the ground running, cities across the country are ready for a promised immigration crackdown, with plans said to be under review. Nearly half of the population is bracing for an Arctic blast as a massive winter storm slams most of the East Coast from North Carolina to Maine. The new concerns tonight about bird flu after the virus is found in commercial poultry in Georgia. The countdown to the college football national championship is on. The teams, the fans, and a preview of the big game. While the pros get down to business, the city's waiting with bated breath for a shot at Super Bowl 59.
From ABC News, this is World News Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on this.
Tonight, the ceasefire in the Middle East. The hostages just released after 15 months. Celebrations in Israel and also in Gaza as the fighting finally pauses. In the region, the powerful images. Israeli hostages now free, reuniting with their families. The moment they left Hamas custody, hugs and tears in Tel Aviv, and celebrations in Gaza now that the fighting has paused. But for how long? The 24-hour roller coaster ride for TikTok shut down overnight, now back up and running by the companies thanking Donald Trump. We saw it in Philly at the game, the dangerous snowstorm pounding the Northeast. And now, millions bracing for a brutal deep freeze that in some spots could feel like 55 below. You heard that right. A one-on-one with Shannon Sharpe, how the NFL Hall of Famer has found a successful second act after football, with others picking up that same playbook.
I look at myself as the male version of Barbara Walters or an Oprah Winfrey.
This is NBC Nightly News with Hallie Jackson.
Good evening. We begin tonight with...
This now is Lee Greenwood, the famous voice behind God Bless the USA. Lee, it's great to see you again. The last time I saw you in person was at a Mitt Romney rally in 2012. I can't remember the city. It was at an airport somewhere. You came up with your lovely wife, and you were just so nice and so gracious to everybody there. And now you're going to be the headliner this afternoon at the Capital One Arena, and you're going to be introducing President Trump just before he puts his hand on the Bible for the oath of office. What's this weekend going to be like for you, having played such a huge role in his campaign up to now?
Well, what a privilege. And here we are inside the Capitol Arena. We stepped out of the snow. It's nice and dry in here, and there's an electric excitement inside this arena. And as you said, when Donald Trump puts his hand on the Bible and swears the oath to take care of the country, and he's the 47th President of the United States, I'm hoping it'll be this Bible, which is released tomorrow as a tribute to Donald Trump, the 47th President. It's GodBlessUSABible.com. There are only going to be 5,000 of these. And I know he's going to take the oath by putting his hand on several Bibles. He might do this one as well.
You know,
tonight on PBS News Weekend, the first hostages return to Israel and aid trucks enter Gaza as the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas goes into effect, pausing 15 brutal months of war. Then some of the world's biggest companies make record-breaking donations to the Trump inauguration, and top tech CEOs will be front and center at festivities. And the little-known and heartwarming White House tradition, outgoing presidents leaving personal notes for their successors.
This process, while sometimes a humorous one, sometimes a small one, is an important step in recognizing it's not about the people in the office, it's about the office itself.
Major funding for PBS News Weekend has been provided by the ongoing support of these individuals and institutions. And friends of the News Hour.
on this Sunday night, a fragile ceasefire in Gaza begins. An emotional homecoming for the first 3 Israeli hostages, while displaced Gazans return to what's left of their homes, and much-needed aid finally pours into the battered region. Chaos for Chrystia. Protesters try to derail the former finance minister's first official campaign event for the Liberal leadership. And Inauguration Eve.
We won!
Washington prepares for President-elect Trump to be sworn in, and Canada braces for possible tariffs.
Global National. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
You are looking at the moment Israeli hostages reunited with their loved ones today. The 3 women were captured 471 days ago during the deadly Hamas attacks in southern Israel.
bc.net.au/emergency.
With the ceasefire in place, dozens of Palestinians are freed and 3 Israeli hostages are released by Hamas. Donald Trump to be sworn in 12 hours from now, promising a flurry of action on day 1 of his second term. Cyclone Sean dumps hundreds of millimetres of rain on parts of the Pilbara as it travels down the West Australian coast. And a 9 Network commentator apologises to Novak Djokovic over a ribbing that fell flat. Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Joe O'Brien. After
Hello there. Donald Trump is set to be sworn in as the 47th President of the United States today.
Best first day, the biggest first week, and the most extraordinary first 100 days of any presidency in American history.
On his latest rally, he promises to issue lots of executive orders on his first day back.
But what does this mean for that all-important special relationship?
Keir Starmer's scramble to secure trade deal. The Prime Minister congratulates the incoming president ahead of today's inauguration.
Before he's sworn the oath of allegiance, his impact is being felt around the world in the most incredible way.
Beverly Turner sits down for an exclusive interview with Nigel Farage ahead of the inauguration.
Plus, as Donald Trump previews a sweep of executive orders on his first day, can he really make America great again? We'll be debating that.
Freedom at last. British-Israeli Emily Damari is released alongside 2 other women after being held hostage for 471 days by Hamas.
And happy birthday to the Duchess of Edinburgh. She is 60 today. We reflect on her life as a royal.
Feeling blue? Well, Dr. Emily Andre will be telling us how mushrooms can help combat that January slump.
And in the sport, who's worse at the moment? Is it Tottenham Hotspur or is it Manchester United?
It's us.
It's us. It's us.
Yeah,
it's you. It's us. Both losing the Premier League again. Manchester City look much better. They're back on track, and Nottingham Forest keep rolling on. And is Novak Djokovic very precious, or does he actually have a point? We'll find out.
There's some unsettled weather arriving later on this week. Join me later where I'll have the full detail for you.
Hello there, 1 minute past 6 o'clock. A very good morning to you on this Monday morning. However you're watching, however you're listening, I'm Eamon Holmes.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast with Eamon and Ellie.
I am Chinua Sondu, reporting from Lagos, Nigeria for France 24. Join me on all updates on Nigeria on France 24 news programs.
Chinua Sondu, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
Hello and a very warm welcome. If you're just joining us, you're watching Daybreak here on France 24. These are the headlines. Donald Trump to be sworn into office as the 47th President of the United States. The inauguration will be held indoors for the first time in decades. Ahead of the ceremony, Trump promised to act fast on the economy and immigration. 90 Palestinian prisoners freed and bused back to the West Bank. Scenes of joy and celebration there, mirroring that scene in Tel Aviv hours earlier, as 3 Israelis who had been held hostage by Hamas were also released. And after over 15 months of war and 46,000 deaths, those left in Gaza must now try to rebuild, many returning to rubble where their homes once stood, and the region requiring urgent humanitarian aid. Good to have you with us. Well, also coming up, Antonia Kerrigan will be joining us for a look at the international papers, among other things, looking at Joe Biden's presidency as it draws to a close. The reviews are being written, and from many Americans, it's not good.
Good morning, it's 6 o'clock. Donald Trump will be officially sworn in today as the 47th President of the United States.
He's promised a historic first day with the blizzard of executive orders. We'll look at what a second Trump presidency means for America and the world.
All the details to come on Monday, the 20th of January, Inauguration Day. The president-elect tells thousands of cheering supporters at a victory rally, "We won."
You're going to see executive orders that are going to make you extremely happy. Lots of them. Lots of them.
Donald Trump vows to remake America with a second act that begins at 12 noon here in Washington, 5 p.m. in the UK.
Palestinians celebrate the release of 90 prisoners by Israel as part of the Gaza ceasefire deal. After 471 days in captivity, British-Israeli dual citizen Emily Damari is one of 3 hostages reunited with their families. And that's the story on the front of almost every newspaper this morning. We'll take a closer look in our news review at 6:45. very good morning to you. This is the Image live in Washington, D.C., where Donald Trump has vowed to take back our country when he becomes America's 47th president later today. Ahead.
This is DW News live from Berlin. Israel releases Palestinian prisoners as part of a ceasefire deal. Celebrations erupt in the West Bank as buses arrive carrying 90 women and children freed from Israeli detention. Hundreds more Palestinians are set to follow. Earlier, the first Israeli hostages were released by Hamas under the ceasefire deal. After 15 months in captivity in Gaza, the three women are back in Israel, reunited with loved ones. And Donald Trump celebrates with supporters just hours ahead of his return to the White House. On the eve of his inauguration, he pledges around 100 executive orders on day one. I'm Biresh Banerjee. Welcome. Both Israel and Hamas
jewelry.
This is Asia Now.
It's 2 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 11:30 in New Delhi and 1 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Paul Singh. At this hour, the man guilty of the rape and murder of a junior doctor in India will be sentenced today in the speedy trial of a crime that sparked national outrage. He faces life imprisonment or the death penalty. Emotional reunions after Hamas releases 3 female hostages. The guns fell silent in Gaza as the truce takes hold. Israel has freed 90 Palestinian prisoners. Humanitarian aid flows into the war-ravaged enclave. Hundreds of trucks carrying much-needed food and medical supplies en route to those in need.
I think that this is Trump's world forever. I think let's just give it some time. There's going to be a lot of shock and awe in the first few weeks, and we're expecting that in the first few months and perhaps the first year. But I think that you will very quickly see pushback, and as we all know, things change very quickly in politics, and certainly here in DC.
There feels like there is a vibe shift where Trump has he's done 3 elections, he's won 2 of them, he's won the argument, his supporters feel they've won this moment. This feels like a movement has happened. But the big question really is, where does it go next?
Do you think that as a result of the majority he's got, the campaign he fought, and what he wants to do to this country, the America that starts on Inauguration Day will be fundamentally and forever different to the America that everyone else has got used to, since World War II? Welcome to the forecast from Washington, D.C., where everything, and I mean everything, is about to change. Not just the inauguration itself on Monday, which Donald Trump has moved inside because apparently it's far too cold for all those people to turn up on the Mall in front of the Capitol building, but also what this inauguration signifies for America and for the rest of the world. You could call it the climax of the triumph of right-wing populism across the board. Well, to discuss not just what's going to happen on Inauguration Day itself, but also the consequences and the first week of Trump, the sequel, I'm joined by Kieran Moodley and by Siobhan Kennedy, our Washington correspondent. Welcome to you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it the final festival of progressive America, the wake of progressive America?
I don't think so. I think progressive America feels that way right now. I think they're still very wounded and distressed by what's happened. I think for a while, yes, it's very clear that their policies and their desires will be very much pushed to the side. But remember 2 years ago, Donald Trump himself was an outcast after the midterms. He was politically frozen, even by his own party. So yes.
The charred remains of a petrol tanker in central Nigeria. At least 70 people died in an explosion here in the early hours of Saturday morning. Nearly all the victims were locals who'd rushed to collect the fuel that spilled when the tanker overturned. The Federal Road Safety Corps says most of them were burnt beyond recognition. This thing happened early in the morning. It happened that people were scooping the fuel from the tanker. They finished scooping the fuel and they brought a generator to use in transloading the fuel into another tanker. And when they started the generator, the explosion happened.
When they start the generator, that is when the explosion just started.
This is not the first incident of its kind. The petrol price has gone up by over 400% since May 2023, when President Bola Tinubu scrapped a decades-old fuel subsidy, sending the price of essentials and other goods soaring. This has led many to risk their lives to recover fuel during tanker truck accidents. As the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas comes into effect, Egypt says it will open its Rafah border crossing with Gaza to allow humanitarian aid into the territory. It's the enclave's main gateway to the outside world, but has been closed since the Israeli army took over the Palestinian side last May. This is indeed a follow-up mechanism for the implementation process in place. There will be an operation chamber and a joint mechanism located here in Cairo, in addition to two sub-mechanisms following it in the city of Arish to monitor the access of humanitarian aid as well as the flow of individuals. Of course, the most important now, in addition to the sustainability of the ceasefire, is to fix the disastrous humanitarian situation inside the Gaza Strip. Hundreds of trucks carrying food, water and medicine have been lined up on the Egyptian side of the crossing since Friday. They're waiting for the green light to take the life-saving aid into the enclave, where Palestinians have suffered near starvation conditions during the Israeli blockade. Egypt will lead big efforts in cooperation with the international community to mobilize the biggest amount of aid into the Gaza Strip. The Rafah crossing will start operating soon and is being prepared to allow the biggest amount of aid. We've agreed on allowing 600 trucks daily inside the strip, including 50 fuel trucks. And we hope that 300 of these will go to the north of the strip, because this area is very distressed and the situation is worse there and more disastrous than in the rest. The start of the ceasefire on Sunday was delayed by just over 2 hours as Israel waited to receive the names of the 3 hostages expected to be released later in the day. Global growth is expected to improve slightly this year, with the International Monetary Fund raising its forecast by 0.1 of a percentage point. In its latest World Economic Outlook, it says it expects global growth to reach 3.3% this year and to remain at this level in 2026. The growth outlook for emerging market economies remains stable, with the IMF expecting growth in sub-Saharan Africa to pick up to 4.2% this year, and it forecasts that global inflation will continue decelerating. The IMF has, however, revised world trade volume estimates slightly downwards for both years due to a sharp increase in trade policy uncertainty. It warned that an intensification of protectionist policies in the form of a new wave of tariffs could exacerbate trade tensions, lower investments and disrupt supply chains. Its latest forecast comes days before the inauguration of US President-elect Donald Trump, who's proposed a 10% tariff on global imports. Popular social media app TikTok stopped working in the United States late on Saturday night, leaving millions of users unable to watch videos on the platform. The temporary shutdown came hours before a new law banning the video sharing app was due to come into effect. In a message to users, the Chinese company said it was working to restore its services in the United States as soon as possible. TikTok was banned over concerns about parent company ByteDance's link to China's government. US courts gave the company a 19th of January deadline to sell TikTok to a non-Chinese buyer or face a total shutdown. It chose the latter. Incoming US President Donald Trump has said he will most likely give TikTok a 90-day reprieve from the ban when he takes office on Monday. The United States has never banned a major social media platform, and even if temporary, some analysts believe it will have a negative impact on US-China relations.
Thank you for sparing your precious time. This is Amir Shakil. Have a good life. Bye-bye.